Thank you, Dr. Sanville. We'll continue to go out of order here a little bit and jump to item 7.4. I'm excited to be here to share this document with everyone tonight. And I've also brought some distinguished friends along to help. For the sake of time, they will be introducing themselves throughout the presentation. Next slide, Ryan. Back in the fall of 2021, as part of our district goals, we created a sustainability task force composed of students, staff, and community volunteers. The charge of the task force was to create a roadmap of both short and long-term goals to empower our district to operate in a way that meets today's needs without compromising the ability to meet our future needs. Just to be clear, this document does not specifically address the why or the how, although it does identify some possible steps or actions. Instead, it's more focused on the what and the when. Next, please. Next page, please, Ryan. This is our BLUF statement. BLUF stands for bottom line upfront. And the impacts of climate change are presenting us with a global imperative, whether it's increasing intensity of storms, forest fires destroying acres and acres of trees, or hotter areas of the planet becoming even hotter, leading to forced migration or destruction of farmlands. The science on this is clear. While the best time to act was yesterday, the second best time to act is now. And Unionville Chadsworth School District plays a critical role in promoting a more sustainable future for our students, staff, and community, and we'll talk more about that in the presentation. We'll also review the specific and measurable goals that will ensure our efforts are aligned to specific outcomes. An achievement of these goals outlined in this plan will require sustained resources and budget to be successful. But it doesn't have to be expensive to do so if we do it thoughtfully and with focus, and weave the principles of sustainability concepts into what we do and how we do things. And some sustainability items will help us save money. Last, ongoing stakeholder engagement will be necessary to ensure appropriate focus, buy-in, and accountability. This is not something that just gets set on autopilot and just works itself out. Sustainability cannot be looked at as a singular destination, but instead it needs to be looked at as a continuous journey. Next slide, please, Ryan. Speaking of journeys, let's review the last 8-month journey of the task force. Back in October 21, we sent out an open call to volunteers. We got so many, we actually had to turn people away. We had close to 100 people. And we had to narrow it down to 40 to make it a manageable group. Then in November of 21, we really lifted things off. We broke into work groups that had specific focuses based on people's experiences and interests. We worked through the wintertime, mapping out our thoughts and goals. And then in March, we came to an inflection point. We had to make sure that what we were focusing on was the right areas of sustainability that our community and stakeholders felt was important. So we held a thought exchange and received incredible feedback that helped focus our efforts. And that brings us to today, and this report being issued in draft form because we want feedback, and we're going to solicit feedback from all of our stakeholders, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. After we receive this feedback, we will take that information and finalize the report in July. So this time I'm going to turn it over to our distinguished guest to take us through the details of the document here. I'm going to ask Mr. Rob Cyberlick to come up and get us started.
Good evening. So my name is Rob Cyberlick. I'm a parent in the district of a Husky. I'm an uncle to some other nieces and nephews across Chadsford and Patton and a few other schools. And I joined this, like most of the other people in the community, because we really wanted to make a difference with sustainability, but it's such a massive goal. It's hard to figure out where to start and what to focus on. And that's what the task force was really tasked with, was figuring out that first step. So we broke it down into 4 groups: energy conservation, water conservation and waste management, the greening of the campus, and finally, sustainability education for staff, students, and the community. The people pulled for this are the people that James mentioned. These were parents of students, they were members of the community, they were students themselves, as well as staff members. The exchange was a great resource as well, reaching out to the broader community. And I think that's really helped us to focus on some of the objectives. And these objectives, as mentioned, these are just sort of starting points. These are our recommendations for what the goal should be and how to start. But this is going to be a long-term objective that will need a committee probably to shepherd it through to achieve these goals, because sustainability is not a one and done thing. It really is a longer term play. And this is just sort of setting that up. So if you want to go to the next slide. So these were the 4 focus areas I mentioned. And what we're going to do is we're going to walk you through each one of these 4 groups with a member of each committee, talking about what the goals and first steps were for that different working group. So I was a member of the first committee, Energy Conservation and Efficiency. My background, I'm president of an energy services company where we work to help organizations reduce utility, gas, electric, water spend, and use those to fund building improvements. And I worked with a lot of other talented people on there that also had very similar but yet different backgrounds, which was really excellent. So do you go to the next slide? So the goals we had, we kind of broke it down into these 3 simple goals. So I'm not going to go through everything. I think you guys have seen the slides, but the first one being reducing energy consumption. We wanted to set a goal, very specific, 20% by 2030, 30% by 2040. And really the idea was we're going to start off with just high level. We need to do an intensive audit to kind of figure out where we are and what our baseline is. We actually have some good data, but you can really do a bit more detailed analysis just to figure out where the opportunities are. From there, we can determine what investments to make. And kind of, as I said, these really are investments, because a lot of what this group does is lowering your utility spend through reducing electric, through gas. So there's a payback to a lot of these investments. And those will be things such as high efficiency lighting, which can actually be improved lighting, more efficient equipment, better controls, whether it be for your HVAC operation or like daylight harvesting for times of the day. And what we're really looking to do with that is just, again, improve the building while also really making it more green. There are some other ones up there, such as looking at how we do demand shedding, which we're already doing, but improving that. And the one other thing we really wanted to highlight with this section was monthly reporting. I think creating visibility to the broader community of the impacts of some of the changes, as well as it kind of generates ideas and opportunities for how they can participate and really see the impacts that they're doing. The second goal that we set out here was looking at where we're sourcing our energy from and trying to get that to be more renewables. I think the grid in Pennsylvania on average is only about 4% renewables. So looking at what we can do. So locally, solar is probably the only really viable local renewable energy source the district could do. And there's a few ways to go after that that can really reduce the amount of upfront investment or even maintenance associated with that. There are options with where we buy our electric supply from. Some suppliers have very high amounts of renewables in their portfolios for electric generation. And the last one, you're trying to see, I'm trying to cheat and read the slides here a little bit, is looking at, renewable policies. This was actually a really great idea came up. I mean, we have a huge base of constituents for members of our state government. And one thing you'll see in a lot of states is they are passing goals for their electric companies to say, hey, by 2050, we want to be at this goal. By 2030, we want to be at this goal in terms of percentage of renewables in their portfolio. So using the voice of the district to try and influence our policymakers to try and get those similar types of policies in Pennsylvania. And that really feeds into the last bullet about reducing our emissions of greenhouse gases. So we can do things like looking at converting the bus fleet over to electric, which sounds very daunting and very expensive, but there's a lot of programs out there that can cover up to, I won't say it necessarily will, but up to 100%, not only of the buses, but of the charging stations that the district can get access to. There's other things such as just looking at the types of equipment we have on here when our future purchasers are changing out. About 50% of the district, I believe, their energy usage is through burning fossil fuels locally. So that's the natural gas and propane uses. Converting that over to electric. So as we move to more renewable electric sources, you'll be able to capture not only the greenhouse reduction of those electric equipment, but also if you're not burning that greenhouse gases locally, you'll be able to remove the emissions from them as well. So those are just some of the first steps that we've outlined in the document. But again, a lot of these are not just a one and done. These are the first steps. And once we get that information from the audits, once we evaluate some of these programs, those are where the second steps will come in. So with that, I'm going to actually turn it over to the next working group, and Bob Struble is going to take you through that one.
Thank you, Robin. Good evening to all of you. I'm Bob Struble. I'm an alumnus, class of 61, that's 1961. I'm also the son of two Unionville High School teachers in the 1930s, and also the brother and brother-in-law of two Unionville High School teachers as well, math and English in the 80s, 90s, and early into the century. I worked on the, yes, they're up there now. I worked on the work group 2, and our focus was on water conservation and waste management. You can see them up there. I'm going to go through quickly the goals and a little bit of the steps. The first one is on water conservation, and what our goal is to reduce the potable water use by 20% by 2030 and 40% by 2040. Now, we've done a good job in our local watersheds in managing water resources. We don't have the problems a lot of the country do in how to manage water and make sure we have enough of it and the price of it. But that doesn't mean we can't do a better job. And we're looking at a couple of ways of doing that through structural changes, and that's looking at the conservation fixtures, behavioral changes, and other ways of reducing the amount of water that we get from natural resources. The second area is waste management. And what we're looking to do there is reduce the amount of waste that goes to landfills. That's where the waste from all of the campuses goes. They go to local landfills, mostly to the Southeastern Chester County Refuse Authority in Linden Grove Township. We want to reduce that by 30% by 2030 and 40% by 2040. Now, you don't see in there recycling, but that's part of the equation. We're going to look at recycling. We're going to look at reducing. We're going to look at other ways of reusing and reducing materials. We're going to also look at composting. And when we did the thought exchange, one of the items that came through loud and clear and so many times over was, what are we doing with all the food waste that we have? The cafeteria came up many times and how to do something about that. So we're looking at composting. Not a new idea, certainly. You know that the mushroom industry has been doing that for 100 years. So there's plenty of experience locally with composting. Loma Gardens, Borough of Media is going to be going into that. So we're going to look at that as a way of reducing the amount of waste that goes to a landfill. Not only that, it can produce a product that's beneficial as well. Thirdly, we're looking at reducing the amount of technology and hazardous waste. This is a little bit newer area. We want to reduce that 20% by 2030. This is the electronic equipment, the computers, and all the other things that are more recent, that are a little more difficult to recycle. Not impossible, a little more difficult. So we're looking at ways that we can reduce the amount that we have to deal with, first of all, and then looking at ways that we can recycle. There are places that can do that. So those are the things we're looking at in water conservation and waste management. And that's what we think is very doable over the next couple of decades. And we think this will put the Unionville campuses in a great position to be sustainable for years to come. So I'm now going to yield to the next work group 3. We have rising senior Ojas Perandere is going to tell you about that.
So our group focused mostly on making our, I'll introduce myself. My name is Otis Ferrandare. I'm a rising senior. I'm also the president of our school's Earth Club. I'm really passionate about sustainability.
I'm Andy Lee. I recently graduated, class of 2022. It's good to be here with all of you.
So in terms of making our campuses more sustainable, we had 3 major goals. The first of which was to minimize the impact that we as a district have on surrounding streams and waterways. Just a basic idea of what we wanted to do was to basically capture and absorb as much of the water that can run off into the streams and waterways using either rain gardens or converting a lot of the current grass into meadows, and also possibly looking at green roofs, which would help to, again, absorb more water on top of the roofs of the schools. Currently, we want to better understand the impact that it's having currently, and then we can go into how many rain gardens we would need, how much land we would have to convert to meadows and things like that.
The second facet of our plan is improving the campus biodiversity and aesthetics. So we're trying to create environments that support local pollinators and local biodiversity. Part of this is the little pond area next to the faculty parking lot. There's a lot of natural wildlife that already resides there. If there was some way that we could highlight that, maybe make some walking trails around it or some educational signs around that fenced in area, that would just be very beneficial, not only to the environment and the wildlife around here, but also to the educational aspect of sustainability. We'd also use on-site water resources for the educational capacity, like I just mentioned. The campus courtyards are very beneficial as green spaces and outdoor spaces for students' mental health. There are a lot of studies that show the benefits of students getting their outdoor time, supporting their mental health and all that nature. And so the wellness committee could also be very heavily impacted by that. There's also the review of native and non-native species and plantings throughout the campuses. Not only in that pond by the faculty lot, there are a bunch of different areas that could be easily turned into places for wildlife to grow and really blossom.
And also just like a last part of that is like integrated pest management, which is just controlling pest populations in like a more environmentally sensitive way. And the last goal, which is kind of a bit more overall encompassing, is just to make all of our schools green ribbon schools. The green ribbon is like a certification offered by the PA Department of Ed, which basically sets forth a bunch of requirements for schools to meet to be just counted as sustainable schools. We want to have at least 2 of our schools meeting 2 out of the 3 pillars by 2025. And then having at least, then we want to have at least 1 school completing all 3 pillars and getting a state nomination by 2030. Now I'll turn it over to Joseph Venkatesh.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jyotsna Venkatesh, and I'm a rising senior this year. And I was particularly interested with sustainability education, how we could improve that in our school district. So we developed 3 main goals. The first was improving sustainability and environmental literacy. And we had multiple ways of doing this, but one of the biggest ways we wanted to do this was through considering connections to local environmental organizations, such as Stroud Water Preserve or Longwood Gardens. And this would give students a great way of learning about the field from experts and developing this sense from a very young age for them as well, which is important as we continue to work on sustainability well into the future. And we also want to develop educational campaigns to inform students and staff about recycling, which was a big issue that we noticed. And that was also something we found in the thought exchange. And possibly through signage or other projects, we want to develop a way for them to learn about it and easily implement it as well. We also want to develop large projects with individual components that could integrate with the curriculum across all grade levels. So an example of this is the current orchard project at Patton. And we want something like this that students can start when they're entering the school district in kindergarten and have something that they could look back on as they graduate as well. And just some smaller steps here. We want Unionville High School students to create sustainability videos that can be shared with the elementary and middle school students for them to easily develop and understand these ideas, and develop a student Shark Tank regarding sustainability products or initiatives, and give students a way for them to voice their own opinions about what could be done to improve sustainability here at our school district. The next part we had was establishing a speaker series built around aspects of sustainability open to community members, staff, and students. And like I said before, this could be through these local environmental organizations and having experts in the field come talk to our community and our staff and students. We could also partner with Focus and the Wellness Council for their speaker series to include sustainability. And just an additional note here, we also want a website devoted to sustainability. And this could be something that lists the recycling procedures that we were talking about earlier, gives students an easy way of looking at what can be recycled and how they can implement it during lunch, for example. And lastly, we have the development of everyday sustainability habits for students and staff. And the first part was creating the administrative guidelines identified in Board Policy 820 for the rules of the game regarding energy use and energy management. So this was a board policy about energy conservation. And as Mr. Cyberlick was talking about earlier, energy conservation and the guidelines going around that are something that we can establish. And lastly, as we've stated, this is just the first step. The task force really established the what and when, and we want the how to be carried out by the Sustainability Committee. We want this to include various district stakeholders to oversee the implementation and management of the goals that we have created. Next slide, please. Just some acknowledgements here. So the task force, we have had community members, staff, students, and parents all help us over the past 8 months. We want to thank everyone who volunteered their time and efforts throughout the process. Next slide.
Thank you, everyone. That was awesome. Just the last part here, as we said, is we do want feedback. We do want questions. We want some comments, and we have a way to collect them. We have created a sustainability email address for the school district, and thoughts can be shared there. And we have talked about maybe doing a follow-up thought exchange with now that this draft report is created, because that was one of the comments in the thought exchange too, was, give us something to comment on. So I just want to say thanks to everyone who helped. Thanks to the community representatives and the students who came tonight to help. That was very, very good. If we have any questions or comments, we could take a few minutes now, or we can just wrap it up.
I'll just share a quick comment. I appreciate all that is shared, and Dr. Key, also going to nod to you for really being a driving force behind this. I think this is so incredibly important on so many levels. And as Mr. Hoffman has pointed out to me over the years, these things all are interconnected with physical health and mental health, emotional health, academics, all these things. And I know you know that, and I'm glad to hear this is going forward, and I appreciated all the different categories you've got. And I will have some feedback just ongoing, but I really appreciate this, and I think this is really important.
I just kind of want to share the same idea. We just had a curriculum and instruction meeting tonight where we were talking about senior projects, and we were talking about, there's just a ton of synergy with other things that the district is working on. So, and I'm really impressed with the variety of expertise and passion that you had in the committee. So, well done. Thank you for sharing that tonight.
A special thank you to the students and the community members who have taken the time and initiative to be involved and help us work this through. We're so lucky that we have these resources in our community.
Just add my thanks to Mr. Weitzel and Dr. Aki and the whole committee. I think you found that middle lane where we can take action in a way that our whole community can support. You found that middle lane that our school board, I think, has found in education, that avoids extremes of any type, and that connects us on things that we can believe in and things that where we can make a positive difference. So thank you for that. And just finally, a comment about these connections that have already been pointed out. We've got our three students working together. One of them a graduate, pretty awesome. Might have some of the names wrong, but just I think Andy, Joe, thank you. Awesome to see you working together on this. Bob Struble, uber generationally connected, personally and with all of his relatives and teachers across generations, really awesome. And for anyone who doesn't know this about Rob Sieberlich, he has a connection too, which is our school board member, Jen Brown, happens to be the little brother of Jen. And I know that she's very proud of him because she just texted me that she was. So thank you, everyone.
I did not know that connection. That's great. But Bob Struble also sells himself short. He is not only a graduate of Unionville High School, he is in the Unionville High School Wall of Honor. And though he does not advertise that. So I thought that compelled to advertise it for you, Bob. Well deserved, by the way.
Thank you.
I know we are done, but I can't help but comment. So I'm sorry. I just can't help it. I mean, you know, one of the things, I live and breathe sustainability, as you all know, this company which takes manure and food waste to produce electricity. And so when I went into it, I went into such a detail, and these folks kept it at a very generic level that I couldn't have done that because I'm so in the nitty gritty of it. So I really wanted to thank you all for keeping it at the level where everybody can understand and everybody can engage. And you know, we are in a changing world where renewable world is going to take over. There's going to be so many more jobs that are going to be in the renewable world, and whether it's, you know, renewable energy or whether it's renewable materials, or, you know, there's just going to be a whole economy that's renewable. And to be able to provide our kids that foundation of sustainability so that they can launch into this world and be part of that world is just a great place to be at. So I am just super excited for everybody's participation, and thank you everybody for putting in the hours that you all put in to bring us to this spot. So thanks.